Story 1. The Man Next Door. Kara moved into the house on Alderton Street on a Saturday in late September, end unit of a row of 4 terraced houses. Good location, reasonable rent, a small garden at the back, a street quiet enough to sleep well. She had researched it thoroughly, spoken to the letting agent twice, driven past on 2 separate evenings, checked the area online. She had not spoken to the neighbors before moving in. She would think about that later. The man next door introduced himself the second day. It was a Sunday. Around 11 a.m., she heard the knock and opened the door. A man in his mid-50s stood on her step. Average height, a gray cardigan. He was holding nothing. He was not smiling exactly. He had an expression that was arranged into friendliness in the way a face sometimes is when the friendliness is something chosen rather than felt. He gave his name as Martin. He said he had lived next door for 12 years. He said the street was quiet and she would like it here. He said if she needed anything at all, she should knock. He paused, and then he said it again. If you need anything, please knock. She thanked him. She said she would. She closed the door. She stood in her hallway for a moment. Something about the conversation had landed slightly wrong. Not anything she could identify precisely. Just a quality to it. A flatness underneath the warmth. Like warmth that was being performed rather than felt. She told herself she was being unfair. New place, new person. Give it time. She went back to unpacking. Over the following weeks, she began to notice things. The kind of things you only noticed when you were already paying attention. And the problem was that Martin had already made her pay attention. He had made her feel like she was already being watched before she had any evidence of it. She set that feeling aside and watched. He watched the street from his front window. Not occasionally, consistently. Every time she came or went, she could feel eyes from the window. She started checking. Most of the time, if she looked quickly as she unlocked her door, she would catch the curtain moving. Sometimes before she had even reached her front door. Not always, but most of the time. He knew her schedule. She realized this gradually. A comment here and there when they happened to be outside at the same time. Back late tonight? When she came home at 8 p.m. Early start? When she left before 7. Observations stated as questions, like someone checking whether you knew they were watching. She began to feel observed in a way that was specific and deliberate, but she had nothing concrete, no incident, no confrontation, just a feeling, just a moving curtain, just a man who knew her schedule. She started varying her routine. Different times, different routes, sometimes leaving through the back garden via the alley. Martin adapted, not immediately, not so obviously that she could point to it and be certain. But within 10 days he was commenting on the new schedule too. Out the back way these days, when she came back through the front after using the alley. She did not know how he knew. She began checking for cameras. She went over the doorbell area carefully, her own window frames, the gap between the eaves. She walked the narrow passage between the 2 houses with her phone torch pointing at everything. She found nothing visible, but she found something else. In the fence panel that divided their rear gardens, roughly 3 feet from the back corner, she found a gap. A deliberate gap. The wood had been cut or broken and removed cleanly, not a split from weather or age. Removed. The gap was at the height of someone standing. It pointed directly toward her back door. She stood in her garden and looked through it toward her own house. She could see her kitchen window clearly, and anyone standing here could watch her use it. She filled the gap with an offcut of wood she found in the garden shed. She did not mention it to Martin. She told herself she had no proof of anything. 3 days later, the wood was gone, and the gap was back. She went to the police. She wrote it all down first. Dates, times. The comments he had made and when. The gap in the fence. The wood she had put there and what had happened to it. The schedule changes and how quickly he had adapted to them. She presented it calmly. The officer who took her statement was sympathetic and professional. He explained what they could and could not do with what she had given them. No crime had been committed. No direct threat had been made or recorded. No evidence she could present beyond her own account. he could log the concern and send a community officer round to speak with Martin. She said yes. The community officer visited the following week. Kara was in her house. She watched from the upstairs window. She saw the officer knock. She saw Martin answer. She watched the conversation. Martin's body language was relaxed. He nodded. He smiled once. He appeared entirely at ease. The conversation lasted 6 minutes. The officer left. That evening, Martin knocked on Kara's door for the first time since the introduction. She was in the kitchen. She heard it. She walked to the hallway. She did not open the door. She stood and listened. He knocked a second time, then silence, and then his voice. Very quiet, close to the door. "You don't need to do that. I'm not dangerous." She did not respond. She did not move. She stood in the hallway and listened to the silence on the other side of the door. Then she heard him step back. His footsteps returned to his own door. She heard it close. She stood in the hallway for a long time after that. She called her letting agent the next morning. She was out of the property within 3 weeks. She found out later, from another neighbor on the street, a woman who had lived 2 doors down for 6 years, that she was the 4th woman to leave that property. In the past 2 years, all of them single women living alone, all of them had requested early lease termination. None had given a specific reason to the letting agent. The neighbor had not known the first 2 well, but she had known the 3rd. They had been friendly, had coffee once. When the 3rd woman had left, the neighbor had asked her directly why. The woman had said she felt uncomfortable. She had not elaborated. The neighbor had not pushed. But she said the look on her face when she said it was not the look of someone who felt vaguely uneasy about a place. It was the look of someone who had decided that the less she said, the better. Kara asked whether anyone had ever found out what specifically Martin was doing, whether anything had ever come of it. The neighbor was quiet for a moment. "No one's ever stayed long enough to find out," she said. She paused, and I think that's probably the right call. Kara told me the part that stays with her is not the curtain, not the gap in the fence, not even the knock on her door the evening after the police visit, not even his voice through the door. It is the specific word he chose. "I'm not dangerous." She said she has turned that word over many times. Dangerous. Of all the things he could have said to reassure her, he chose that one. Not, "I mean no harm." Not, "I'm just a neighbor." Not, "I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable." Dangerous. She said no one who is simply not dangerous ever needs to say so. Story 2. What the smell told her. This story begins with the smell. That is the part that Nia told me first, before anything else. The smell was what made everything else make sense. Nia and her husband moved into their apartment on the 4th floor of a converted building in the spring. Nice building, secure entry, good natural light. The apartment on the left was occupied by a woman in her 30s named Eloise. Eloise was friendly, spoke to them in the hallway, occasionally left packages outside their door if she signed for them when they were out. She seemed normal. She seemed like exactly what she appeared to be. For 6 months, Nia had no reason to think otherwise. Then in October, the smell started. It came through the wall they shared, the wall between their bedrooms. Nia noticed it first at night, after 10 p.m., a smell she could not immediately identify. She lay in the dark the first night trying to place it. Not chemical exactly, not organic exactly, something between those 2 things that she did not have a word for, like a cleaning product used on something that could not be fully cleaned. She told her husband the next morning. He said it was probably something Heloise was cooking, or cleaning supplies, something she had used in the bathroom that was strong enough to come through. He said it would probably pass. Nia said it didn't smell like any of those things. He said he couldn't smell it. She dropped it. The smell came back the following night, stronger, and the night after, stronger again, like something building gradually toward a point it had not yet reached. She started noticing other things around the same time. Heloise had always been routine. Same time out in the mornings, same day for shopping, the same greeting in the hallway, brief, pleasant, consistent. The kind of neighbor who was easy to live beside because they were predictable. In November, the predictability stopped. Heloise stopped going out in the mornings. Then she stopped going out before noon. Then she stopped going out during daylight at all. When she appeared in the hallway, it was late. After 9 p.m., always wearing the same dark coat, regardless of the temperature, always carrying a bag against her chest with both arms, always moving quickly toward the lift or the stairs without slowing. She stopped saying hello, not aggressively, just stopped. Like the part of her that had managed social interactions had gone somewhere else and left the rest of her to manage alone. She started taking the stairs, 4 flights, rather than wait for the lift with Nia. Nia noticed this specifically because she saw it happen once from down the hallway. Heloise pressed the lift button. Then she saw Nia, and she turned and opened the stairwell door instead. Nia tried once in late November to ask directly if she was okay. Heloise said fine. She said it to a point somewhere to the left of Nia's face. Then she went inside and locked the door. The sound of the lock turning was very clear in the hallway. In December, the smell got worse. Much worse. It was no longer something you could explain away as a cleaning product or a cooking accident. It was present. It filled the bedroom some nights to the point where Nia moved to the sofa. She described it to her husband as something rotting but chemical at the same time. Something that smelled like it was trying to smell like something else, and failing. He said they had to do something. He called the building manager on a Friday morning. The building manager came that afternoon. He stood in their hallway and said he could detect something, but he wasn't sure what. He knocked on Eloise's door. There was a long pause. Then the door opened. Heloise looked different than she had 6 weeks ago. She was thinner. Her hair was different. She looked older than she had 6 weeks earlier. The look of someone who had not slept properly for a long time. She said she had been having problems with a drain in the bathroom. She said she had called a plumber, but they had not yet come. She said it would be sorted very soon. She said she was sorry for the inconvenience. She closed the door. The building manager said to give it a few more days. He said if it persisted to call him again. Nia said, okay. She did not say anything else to the building manager. She waited until he left. Then she sat at her kitchen table and opened her laptop. She typed every description of the smell she could think of. Rotting but chemical. Sweet underneath. Stronger at night. Coming through a wall. She found results she was not prepared for. She closed the laptop. She called the police. She said she told them about the smell and the change in behavior and the way Heloise had been avoiding everyone in the building for 6 weeks. She said the officer on the phone was quiet for a moment after she described the smell, then asked for the address. Officers attended that evening, 2 of them. Nia stood in her hallway with the door open 3 inches. She watched them knock on Heloise's door. She watched the pause that followed, longer than a normal pause. Then the door opened. She could see Heloise's face. She could not see what was behind her. She watched one of the officers speak. She watched Eloise's expression. Then she watched the officers' expressions. Neither of them looked surprised, just concerned, in the specific way of people who recognize something. The shift happened before either of them said a word back to Heloise. She could not hear what was being said, but she could see the moment when the conversation changed, when one of them turned slightly toward the other, when one of them reached for his radio. That was enough. She closed her door. She sat on the sofa with her hands in her lap. Her husband sat beside her. Neither of them spoke for a long time. She heard voices in the hallway. More voices, eventually. More people arriving. She did not open the door again that night. She does not speak about what they found. She has asked me not to include those details. She said she is not trying to protect Eloise. She is trying to protect herself from having to say it out loud again. She and her husband moved out within a month. They did not tell people in their lives what had happened. They told them they wanted more space. She told me the part she cannot put down is this. 6 months. They had lived beside Heloise for 6 months before October. She had signed for their packages. She had said good morning in the hallway. She had seemed like exactly what she appeared to be, and the whole time, something had been happening on the other side of that wall. something that eventually produced a smell strong enough to come through it. And Nia had been sleeping 12 feet away, every night, not knowing. Story 3. The Light in the Basement. This is the last story, and I want to tell you that the man who told me this story spent a long time deciding whether to tell it at all. His name is Aaron. He is 43 years old. He and his wife bought their house 17 years ago, a semi-detached house in a quiet residential street. Their neighbor on the adjoining side was a man named Frank. Frank had lived there since the 1980s. He was in his 60s when Aaron and his wife moved in, retired, quiet, kept the garden tidy, nodded hello when he saw you, sometimes chatted briefly over the garden fence about the weather or the football, the way neighbors do, the kind of neighbor you didn't think about very much, the background noise of a life. For 11 years, Frank was that. Background noise. Aaron did not notice the light until the 12th year. It was November, early dark. Aaron was in the kitchen washing up after dinner, looking out the window toward the garden, and he noticed a light in Frank's basement window, a small window at ground level, half obscured by the flower bed that ran along the side of the house, barely visible. He had not noticed it before because it had not been there before. Or rather, he had never been in the kitchen at this particular hour in this particular month when the darkness came early enough and the angle was right. He noticed it and thought nothing of it. A man working in his basement. People had basement workshops, storage rooms, utility areas. It meant nothing, but he noticed it again the next night, and the night after. The light was always on between 7 and 11 p.m. Always, without exception. He started paying attention. He could not see into the basement from his kitchen window. The angle was wrong, and the glass in the small window appeared to be frosted or obscured in some way. Just light, no detail. Every evening, 7 to 11, he mentioned it to his wife. She said Frank probably had a hobby down there. Woodworking, a model railway. People did those things. Aaron said she was probably right. He kept watching the light. Over the following weeks, he noticed something else. Frank's visitors. Frank had visitors most weeks. Aaron had not paid attention before. But now he was paying attention. And he saw that Frank's visitors came and went at unusual hours. Not daytime visitors, evening visitors. They arrived after dark. They did not park outside the house. They parked around the corner, which Aaron could only see because his upstairs office window had an angle to the side street. They went around the side of the house, through the gate, to the basement door, never the front door. Aaron watched this happen 3 times over 4 weeks. Always the same. Always after dark. Always gone within 30 minutes. He told his wife. She said Frank was allowed to have visitors. He said he knew that. She said people had hobbies, groups, clubs. She said she had known someone with a model railway in their cellar who had the club over twice a month to run sessions. He said he knew. She said the hours were unusual, but they didn't know Frank's schedule. Maybe these were people who worked unusual hours themselves. Aaron said he understood all of that. He said he just found it strange that they never came to the front door. His wife said there were all kinds of reasons someone might use a side entrance. She said he was letting himself overthink it. He said she was probably right. He kept watching. He noted each visit in his phone. Date, time in, time out. 1 person each time, never more than 30 minutes. 3 visits over 4 weeks. He looked at his notes. Any one of those details meant nothing. All of them together meant something he could not name. In January, Frank came over. Sunday afternoon. Aaron heard the knock and opened the door. Frank was standing there with a bottle of red wine and a slight smile. He said he had been meaning to come over for a while. He said it had been too long since they had a proper catch-up. Aaron said to come in. They sat in the living room. Aaron poured the wine. Frank asked about the children by name. He asked about Aaron's wife's job. The new position she had started in September that Aaron had mentioned once, briefly, over the garden fence. He remembered it. He asked about the older child's exams. He remembered those too. He was warm, relaxed, present in the conversation in the way of someone who had no pressing concern. Aaron watched him. He watched carefully. He looked for the thing that would tell him something was wrong. He could not find it. Frank was exactly as he had always been. For 11 years, Aaron had sat across from this man at barbecues and fence conversations and the occasional doorstep chat. He had always seemed exactly like this. There was nothing in the room that didn't fit. Frank finished his wine. He said he should be getting back. Aaron walked him to the door. Frank stepped outside. He turned back. "You know you can always knock," he said. He said it warmly, with the same slight smile. "If you need anything, or if you have any questions about anything." He said goodnight. He walked back to his own front door. Aaron stood in his hallway. He stood there for a long time. He had not asked a single question all evening. Or if you have any questions about anything. He had not asked any questions. Frank had not referenced anything that would prompt that phrase. Just, if you have any questions about anything. Like someone leaving a door open, like someone who knew a question might be coming, and was getting ahead of it. The following week, Aaron was putting his bins out on a Tuesday morning. Frank was in his front garden. They chatted briefly, the usual things. As Frank turned to go back inside, Aaron said, "What have you got down in the basement, Frank?" He said it casually, lightly, like it was barely a question at all. Frank stopped. He turned back. He looked at Aaron for a moment. "Just my hobby," Frank said. "What's the hobby?" Aaron said. Frank smiled. "It's private," he said. He smiled as if the question amused him, the same way you'd smile about something private, something that was yours alone, not defensively, just, "It's private. You know how it is." Aaron smiled back. He said, "Of course." He went inside. He called the non-emergency police line that afternoon. He described everything he had observed over the previous 3 months, the light, the hours, the visitors, the pattern of arrival and departure. The officer was polite and thorough. He took everything down. He said he would look into it. 2 weeks later, officers attended at Frank's address. Aaron was not told what they were looking for. He was not told what, if anything, they found. He received a single follow-up call 3 days later. The officer thanked him for the information, said his observations had been helpful, said the matter was being handled, said he could not discuss further details. Aaron asked if Frank was going to be charged with something. The officer said he could not discuss that. Aaron asked if his family was safe. The officer said yes. Aaron never saw Frank again. A for sale sign appeared outside Frank's house 6 weeks later. The house sold. New family moved in. Aaron and his wife had them over for coffee within the first month. Normal people, young kids, a dog. Aaron told me he thinks about Frank sometimes, not often, but sometimes. He thinks about the 11 years before the light. How completely normal Frank had been. For 11 years. The conversations over the fence, the wine on a Sunday afternoon, the way he remembered the children's names and the details of things Aaron had mentioned once months earlier. He said none of that felt like performance when it was happening. It felt like a neighbor, just a neighbor. He said the worst part is not what Frank might have been doing in the basement. He said the worst part is how little discovering it changed the memory of those 11 years. Frank still seems like Frank in his memory, the man who nodded hello, who chatted about the football, who brought wine, who remembered small things. He said that is the thing he cannot resolve. That 11 years of completely ordinary interaction can exist alongside something that was never ordinary at all, and that there was not one moment in those 11 years that gave it away. Not one afternoon over the fence, not one Sunday with a bottle of wine, not one glance or pause or word that would have told him. He said that is what he actually thinks about, not Frank. What Frank tells him about the people he trusts. He said the officer's final words to him were, "You did the right thing, calling us." Then the officer ended the call. No further details. No explanation of what had been found or what would happen next. Just, "You did the right thing," and then nothing. Aaron told me he has thought about that a lot, because doing the right thing implies that there was something there that needed doing the right thing about. And the officer never told him what it was. He said he is not sure he wants to know. He said he is almost sure, but not quite. 3 neighbors, 3 ordinary streets, 3 people who lived beside something they didn't know was there. Subscribe for more late night stories, a new one every week. Kara checks who her neighbors are before she signs anything now. Nia and her husband moved to a detached house. No shared walls. Aaron still lives on the same street. He has good neighbors now. He waves to them in the mornings. He chats over the fence. He said he is mostly fine. Mostly. Think about who lives next door tonight. Whether you actually know them, or whether you've only ever met the version they wanted you to meet, and whether the real version is next door right now. Good night.